He felt the warmth in the air around his head increase, the usual clunk of the AC now reduced to a mere hum. He stretched his limbs, pressing the balls of his feet against the worn sheets at the foot of the bed. Suddenly, the silence was broken by the distinct sound of cloth tearing as his large, untrimmed toes pushed through the threads of the sheet. He wiggled them, amused at how they resembled Casper the ghost winking at him. It was Halloween after all. His eyes ached, as if a bucket of sand had been poured into them from the previous night's party. As he became more conscious, his head throbbed along with his eyes, a classic hangover symptom. "That was one hell of a party last night," he muttered to the lump beside him in the bed. No response. "I said that was one crazy party last night," he repeated, still met with silence. Pulling back the covers, he realized that the knee pillow was in place of his companion. She had already left. The room was dimly lit with a thin sliver of light cast by the rising sun. The woman assumed she had woken up earlier than usual, despite having consumed as much alcohol as her partner the night before. She shuffled into the kitchen to brew some coffee and noticed an array of empty bourbon bottles from her favorite airline lined up on the counter, accompanied by the remnants of a snack bowl scattered about like birdseed. Meanwhile, her partner followed his usual morning routine by making a pot of coffee and heading to the shower, hoping it would alleviate the aftermath of the previous night's festivities. The aroma of the coffee mingled with the steam from the shower, creating a spectral mist around him. As Bruce Springsteen's Tunnel of Love blared from his iPod, he called out into the ether, yearning for his absent partner. "Hey, Julie, wish you were here. Could use some of your tenderness right now." "Where did she go anyway?" "Perhaps for bagels and lox with cream cheese," he mused, hoping to indulge in the delightful combination of salty fish and sweet cheese after a night of partying. As he cleared the steam from the mirror with a towel, he caught sight of his tired reflection. Dark circles lurked beneath his sunken eyes, reminiscent of a character from a zombie film. Shrugging off the thought that he had just washed off the remnants of his Halloween costume, he decided to attend to it later. Right now, his focus was on the beckoning call of coffee and the pending work on his computer. He poured himself a customary 16-ounce mug and observed as the rich black liquid swirled within. Hoping for a flavorful kick, he took a deep whiff, and the warmth of the coffee infused his nostrils. The sensory satisfaction and alertness triggered by the aroma seemed to counter the rhythmic sounds of the ocean, audible from 4 stories below his condo, where the sand was grasped by the waves. As he sipped his coffee, basking in the warmth of the sun, he felt his amygdala come alive with renewed alertness. He was ready to take on the day, despite the fatigue lurking beneath his eyes. As each beat thumped, the temperature rose, intensifying the irritating burn on their cheeks. It was as if the pounding in their head had muted the sound of Edgar Allan Poe's Telltale Heart. To make matters worse, crust had accumulated at the corners of their eyes, becoming a nuisance. The responsible thing to do was to dress up and retrieve the morning paper, leaving the condominium to be cleaned up later. Perhaps it would be best to hire a cleaning service to tackle the mess. After all, the closet was completely empty. Had their partner left them? Pulling out drawers in a panic, the same emptiness greeted them. This confusion left them in a stupor, with the throbbing growing to its earlier crescendo. Their face flushed with both heat and anger as they scanned the room for something to wear. However, all that lay in sight was the costume worn the night before, discarded on the floor next to a small puddle of water. With a look of disgust, they picked it up, noticing its dampness, before reluctantly putting it on. A shiver ran down their spine as the cool fabric touched their skin. None of this makes sense. Everything is here except for clothing. Julie will pay for this prank. Jack thinks it's a good idea to hire a moving company to remove everything before Julie returns. He decides to check out this option while taking his daily walk to get the newspaper. Chuckling to himself, he closes the door behind him and rubs his hands together in anticipation. As he bounds down the stairs instead of waiting for the elevator, the wind howls off the water, pushing the doors open with each gust. The air blasts up the stairs to greet him along with a page of the building newsletter. Jack reaches for the floating news, but trips and crashes into a resident reading his newsletter on the stairs. The impact surprises Jack, and he stands upright, grasping the rail, while the resident looks around quizzically for the cause of the collision. Jack apologizes, but the resident does not acknowledge it as Jack continues on his way. Unaware of the commotion on the beach, he headed towards his regular spot to grab the morning paper. As he walked, he couldn't help but feel the intense heat bearing down on his body. Despite the heat, he was in the mood for a jog and was still humming the tune from his condo. Upon arriving at his destination, he grabbed a paper and called out to the paperboy that he would pay him tomorrow since he had no change or bills on him. Unfortunately, his pants were dripping wet onto his bare feet, adding to his discomfort. The paperboy didn't react to his statement, so he began reading the paper as he walked away. While reading, he stumbled on a story about a Halloween incident that occurred on the beach. Suddenly, he tripped over a stone on the boardwalk and fell onto a bench where a woman was sitting with her chow. The dog yelped as she gasped in shock, noticing a large wet spot on her lap from where he had sat. "Oh, sorry about that," he apologized as he quickly got up, motioning as if he were wiping her off. He walked away, apologizing again as he had done in the stairway. Meanwhile, the woman scolded her dog, assuming that it had peed on her lap. As he approaches a crowd of people gathered on the beach, Jack begins to feel dizzy and starts sweating profusely. He decides to investigate the situation, folding his paper under his arm. Two women are conversing at the outermost edge of the group, discussing the events that led to the gathering. Jack overhears one of them say that a man dressed like the Walking Dead set himself on fire, and the police have no idea who he is. As he tries to navigate his way through the crowd, he bumps into people who are too confused to pay attention to him. Eventually, he falls to his knees and sees a charred body holding 3 bottles of airline bourbon. Suddenly, Julie appears, held up by her girlfriend, and asks Jack if he had played the trick on her that morning as planned. A police officer approaches Julie and asks if the charred body is her boyfriend. Julie nods in response, and the officer consoles her. Jack is surprised by her reaction and tries to hug her, but she jumps back, gasping and yelling at him for using his mouth as a flamethrower and threatening to leave him if he continues with his reckless behavior. Overwhelmed, Jack collapses onto the beach, feeling the sun burning through his clothes and the pounding in his head deafening him. As he looks over to his side, expecting to see the charred body, he realizes that he is the one who set himself on fire.